Hello, Mr. Randy here. Let's pick up with part 2 of week 5. And we have 2 more problems to look at. This first problem I've already started, and I'm going to click on this sketch, double click on this feature. It'll do the same thing. And let's look straight in here. First of all, I want you to be very careful. You can see my sketch lit up in blue. It's the mid-plane, so take a look at this problem when you do it. And notice that this kind of center line that's shown here is what's dimensioned. So it's a thin feature. Put the fillets in as a part of that sketch and extrude it to get the 10 millimeter thickness. We have a lot of features in this part that are symmetrical front to back. So you want to make sure that your origin is in the middle of your sketch here. You can put it at the point here, or you could put it down here where this line would come across. But your origin needs to be in the middle because these hole patterns and this notch, this slot on the other side, those should all get mirrored. There's no dimensions on the other side, so we'll just mirror it all over there. So don't start with the origin like over here in the left corner. Put it in the middle, either at the sharp corner here or down here where that line started on its way across. Now we have this notch here. You need to be very careful with this 36 millimeter dimension when you put it in. I'll show you in just a second, but make sure you pick the point and the line. If you pick the end points, you will not get this dimension. It'll be at a different angle. And the slot is 16 millimeters wide, 2 millimeters across. This is a little confusing, but this 8 millimeter dimension is from the edge of the slot to the center of the hole. We know where the slot is. When we look at this picture, we don't know where that hole is. So don't do it backwards. The slot goes first, and then the hole goes in 8 millimeters off the edge. And we're going to take a quick look at that here right now. So let's flip back, and I will real briefly here double click my cut just so you can see how it should look from a dimension standpoint for that slot or notch. So be real careful. If your 36 millimeter dimension is not parallel to that 16, or actually the same line, that means you picked the points instead of picking the line and the point, and the dimension goes in wrong. All right. I'm not going to mess with the hole on this surface. You can do that and linear pattern it. Do not do a linear sketch pattern. I want you to use linear patterns as a feature. We won't do any more sketch patterns after the one we did way back in week 2 or 3. So don't even think about doing a linear sketch pattern. So I'm going to click on this face, and I'm going to go to Hole Wizard. And we need a 6 millimeter socket head cap screw. So counterbore, metric socket head cap screw, M6, and we'll go to positions, and I'm going to go normal 2, and I'll just drop one, and I'll dimension it. It's 15 millimeters off the edge of the part, and it is 8 millimeters off the bottom edge of that notch, and I'll be looking for that. So let me pop that back up here real quick. Here's that downhill slant, and it's 8 millimeters off the bottom edge, not the top edge. So we can't really see that slot here, so I'm going to go to wireframe. And this is the bottom edge of that slot. We'll verify that before we move on, but let's do that dimension first so we know what we're talking about. And that's not what I wanted. There we go. And I'm going to move this off axis here just to make sure that that 8 millimeters is right on the bottom of that notch, which it is. So that locates that hole for us. And I'll hit OK. Everything was nice and fully defined. I can now linear pattern that. I'm going to go back to shaded. And I'll pick an edge for my direction. And I need 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 holes with a spacing of 22. There are my 9 holes. And we'll hit OK. And then, assuming you had this linear pattern in here, I do want to do the mirror real quick. Again, notice where my origin is. So my base sketch, place the origin where that line would go across the bottom. So we're going to do a mirror. My mirror plane will be the front plane. Remember, this is the right side view. And it picked up the hole pattern. I'm going to pick up the original counterbore hole just in case. And then I'll pick up the cut extrude. And we'll hit OK. Again, you'll have to also mirror this. Again, you could do this all in one mirror. There's no reason to do 3 separate mirrors. One for the notch, one for the first holes, one for the second holes. You should do that all in one step. That way, if anything has to be edited, it's much easier to clean up. Okay? All right, so that's enough for that one. I'll let you try that. Our last assignment looks like this at this stage. Let's pop this up and check this out. So we can see by the pictorial here there's all kinds of holes in this part. And so what's happening here is that on this end there's 6 holes in a circular pattern. Those are mirrored over to the other end. And then right here there are half of that, 8 holes right here in a pattern that are also mirrored over. While we're talking about mirroring, you do need to notice one thing. You cannot mirror this counterbore. If you did so, you would eliminate this dimension. So you must do this profile as a separate cut. Don't try to cut a hole through and then cut this in and then mirror it over to this end. That does not work. I expect to find this dimension in the model when you do that. Secondly, again, all the hole patterns are mirrored, and so we need a plane in the middle of the part. Again, that means that you should probably, well, you're going to sketch this on the front plane. This is the front view over here. When you extrude it, though, don't extrude it in one direction. If you mid-plane extrude it, that'll keep the origin in the center, and that way the front plane will be in the center of the part, and you can use that for your mirror plane. So when you've got symmetry, you've got to be paying attention to where the origin and the principal planes are in order to allow you to mirror geometry, preferably without creating a bunch of extra planes. So I'm going to assume you can extrude this thing and do this cut in here to get this inside bore taken care of. What I'd like to look at is creating the holes. So you'll notice that we have 4 holes across the top edge up here in the pictorial view. And in fact, we can see they line up right here. So I want to make this hole and this hole right on the top edge of the part. Little circular pattern them both and then mirror everything to the back side. So let's look at this in the model. So here's the model, and I need a hole wizard hole up here, and I don't want to do it onto a curved surface. So my first thing, I really need a tangent plane up here on the top surface of the part. So I'm going to go to the plane tool, and I'm going to pick this surface, and it's throwing a tangent plane in, but it's just kind of randomly placed there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a plane that gives us an intersection where I'd like tangency. So let's turn this a bit. The right plane slices vertically through the cylinder, and that's where I want my tangent plane, is right there at the intersection. So if I click on the right plane here, it's going to give me a perpendicular plane to the right plane, tangent to the cylinder. So those are my 2 selections, the cylinder and the right plane. And we'll hit OK. Now I can go to Hole Wizard, And I can set this hole up, and it's an M8 by 1. That's a thread, so we're going to click on thread and symmetric, and we're going to say M8 by 1, and I'm going to go up to next. And we're going to go to positions. It's asking me about a 3D sketch. I don't want that, so I'm going to select this plane. And then we'll go normal 2. And I'm going to just drop that point right there. And then locate it. And I can tell you there's a 10 millimeter dimension straight back from this edge. And then I could turn temporary axes on, or I can just vertically relate those to get fully defined. And we'll hit OK. Now, this hole gets circular patterned so that there are 6 of them. I'm not going to do that. You can do that. But it's the second hole that's a bit tricky, and it's going to require us to do something unique. The second hole is on a 30-degree angle through this vertex at 23 millimeters. And that's rather odd, because that means the surface for Hole Wizard is going to have to be perpendicular to that 30-degree angle. So we're going to have to create another new type of plane here that we haven't done before. So what I'm going to do is create a sketch with this angled line and these 2 dimensions in it, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to go to the right plane and start a sketch, and let's go normal 2. And I'd like to see through this part, so I'm going to look at it with hidden lines. And I think I'll turn on temporary axes. I want to know where that center is of that part. And so I'm going to draw a center line here up at an angle, and I'm going to take it out beyond the surface of the part some distance. I'm now going to dimension from that endpoint to there and get that 23 millimeter dimension in there. And then I'll go from this face to this line and get my 30-degree angle in there. So let's go ahead and go with all edges showing. So you can kind of see what I've done there, okay? And this is based on dimensions from the model. Now, to do a Hole Wizard hole, you know, that hole is going to follow this axis here, this center line that we've created. And so I need a plane perpendicular to that line. So I'm going to close that sketch. You'll notice that it stays lit up. And I'm going to go to the plane tool, and I'm going to pick this line. And when I pick that line, SOLIDWORKS just sticks a plane on that line. Again, I don't know where it is. It could spin around that line. You know, there's nothing defining its orientation. And then I'm going to zoom up, and I'm going to click on the endpoint of the line. And by default, when you do that, SOLIDWORKS sets the plane to be perpendicular to the line through the point. That's the default. And you can change your mind. You can do other things, but that's the default, and that's exactly what we want. Now, we haven't dimensioned the length of this line, so we are kind of technically underdefined because we really haven't placed this plane, but that's okay because this is still not an underdefined sketch. I think it's fully defined, and so we should be good here and have no worries. So yeah, the endpoint of a center line can be underdefined and still be a fully defined sketch because they're infinite. All right, so we have this plane floating out here now that is perpendicular to that line, and we're going to Hole Wizard on that plane. So we're going to go to Hole Wizard, and this other hole is just a 5.2 diameter drill. So we're going to say a drilled hole, 5.2. I'd done this one earlier just to practice, so it's already set. So it's a long list, so you'll go find 5.2. We're going to go up to next once again. We could go up to surface if we wanted to. We'll turn off the countersink. And we're going to go to positions. Again, it says select the face, or to sketch a multiple faces, do a 3D sketch. I don't want to do that. I want to select the face. I'm going to select this plane. And then I'm going to drop my point right on the origin here if I can get it. And I am fully defined, and I didn't need to put that point out there, so let's delete that. So I'm going to hit OK. And SOLIDWORKS is going to shoot that hole from this surface through the part up to the next, which is here. So there are my two holes for this part. Now, once we've got these in, we really don't need to see these planes, and we really don't need to see that sketch. So what I would ask you to do, this is just a good habit to get into, is sketch 5, which is that hidden line. That sketch will stay visible because it was not used in an extrude or anything. I'm going to click on that sketch and click on the little eyeglasses to hide it. You can do the same thing with your planes, and there are two things you can do. One is I could turn off these two planes the same way. Click and click on the goggles to get rid of them. Or up here in my view menu where we turn on temporary axes, which I think I'll shut off, you can also turn off plane display for all those extra planes. So that's a toggle for the plane display. We can get those out of the way. Well, there's our two holes, the threaded hole. Let's go back to a solid look. The threaded hole there with its fake threaded look, and the drilled hole going down at the angle. Now I could circular pattern this one to 6 and circular pattern this one to 8. And then I would mirror all of that to the back side around the front plane right there. And I think you can handle that. So there you have it. Good luck and enjoy.